2009 was a wild time to be a gamer. The last era of true experimentation in gaming, where peripherals, balance boards, motion controls, and plastic instruments still rule the collective consciousness. The Wii was setting records.
My body is ready.
And everyone was taking notice of how important it was to no longer explicitly court the hardcore gamer. Casuals were the new untapped market, and Nintendo had them in a chokehold. Fitness, sports, and music games were the new gaming meta, and publishers were tripping over themselves to get a piece of the new action. That's when a bunch of Maverick ex-Capcom employees decided to do the unthinkable and flip the script. You need to understand, this wasn't a mistake. There was nothing accidental about how MadWorld was developed. This wasn't a case where the publisher made Platinum develop a game they didn't want to make. This was the vision from the start. The contract between Platinum and Sega gave Platinum almost unlimited, exclusive creative control over the game development and design. And there was only two things Sega could do if they didn't like the finished product: shut up and print the discs. Think about that for a minute. Platinum was a brand new studio, risen from the ashes of Clover Games. They needed to establish themselves, prove that any money invested in them was more than a wasted gesture. They could have done anything. And the 2009 landscape was ripe for some incredibly safe plays. Mobile games are booming. The stop-and-pop shooters like Gears of War or military simulators like Call of Duty were the de jour for an audience of hungry gamers. You could have released anything with a tacky peripheral or motion controls and it would have done numbers. But play it safe was never going to be Platinum style. They knew that the only way to have an impact and make people take notice was to burn bright. But it's not enough to have a vision and the backbone to see it through to completion. Let's talk about the obvious problem Platinum now had to deal with. The Wii wasn't a console. It was two calculators held together with hopes, dreams, and duct tape. It was Nintendo's bold declaration that they were done running the same console race as Sony and Microsoft. Anything that Platinum made for it was never going to compete with what Sony and Microsoft were churning out. Unless, of course, they got creative. The answer to creating something visually striking, as well as simple enough to run on the Wii, was beautifully elegant. Lean into the limitation.
How?
Forget about 16 million colors, bump maps, and real-time lighting. This was a game that had the palette of black, white, yellow, and red. That was it. You couldn't see the low polygon count because they were completely obscured. The textures could load in a flash because the file sizes were tiny. That was the genius of Platinum's design. By embracing their creative vision, they made a game that was unassailable. It couldn't be criticized by the hardcore fanboys of the 3 Defense Force. Yes, that was a real website, go look it up, because it wasn't trying to be like them. It blazed its own trail, a flame road that dared anyone to follow. And that's the lesson for today. MadWorld was remembered. It has been a permanent fixture in the gaming zeitgeist ever since release. And despite the fact that it never sold anywhere near expectations at launch, it has become a critical and fan darling in the years since. Like so many other games, its brilliance can only be appreciated long after it was deemed a failure. And that's the problem. Sometimes you can do everything right and still fail. And MadWorld failed. Forget a million units. MadWorld was lucky if it sold 1/10 of that worldwide at launch. But that was never the point. You don't break records by playing it safe. You don't capture the imagination of gamers worldwide by doing what everyone else does. MadWorld was a statement. Platinum declaring bold and proud they were here to make games first and cared to publishers and shareholders last. And Platinum stuck to their guns. Without their commitment, that iron will to stand strong in the face of the fire of failure, we would have never had games like Vanquish, Bayonetta, or Metal Gear Rising. They bought their street cred with blood. We live in an era of safe gaming. We have $300 million budgets and committees of 500 people, making sure no one is ever offended. MadWorld is the antithesis of everything we see in the 2026 industry. Short, focused, it's repetitive in a way that feels like an old-school arcade game, and it doesn't care if you like it. It begs you to disagree, because that proves you can still think for yourself. I love this game because we need to celebrate risks and games that fly in the face of expectation. Nintendo didn't want this game. The Wii audience didn't want this game. But we need this game to exist, because without it, publishers will just keep throwing money at this Concord, Highguard, or FBC Firebreak, and then look shocked when it turns out to be another game that nobody asked for. MadWorld was a 10 out of 10 statement in a 5 out of 10 market. It's the most beautiful disaster on the Wii, and if you haven't played it, you're missing out on the moment Platinum Games decided they're going to be the bad boys of the industry. It's proof that true genius is rarely recognized within this lifetime, and it's on us to make sure that we help steer the future of gaming, not the publishers or the shareholders, because that's the only way anything will ever change. Class dismissed.